The Absolute Law of Karma, written by Shri Pandit Ram Sharma Ji Acharya. Audio 4. Divine law expects man to abide from time-tested moral codes of conduct and also make maximum possible endeavor to prevent others from violating them. If some country or community or a race does not make an effort to prevent or dissuade others from committing wrong deeds in spite of being in a position to do so, or does not promote morality and ethics despite having the means to do so, the former too has to suffer its consequences. Such collective sins of inactivity or indifference invite combined punishment from divine justice. Earthquake, deluge, drought, famine, world war are consequences of collective sins of humanity, in which karmas from vested interests were given priority and the welfare of the rest of the humanity was ignored. Example are spread of AIDS, drug abuse, alcoholism, disintegration of families, juvenile delinquency, terrorism, environment pollution, etc. The developed countries are suffering consequences of their smug indifferences towards the welfare of the unprivileged masses elsewhere. Chapter. Passive acquiescence before evil acts as so sinful. It is seen that in a society of affluent and powerful exploiters suffer much less from natural disaster than the submissive underprivileged masses. The brunt of excessive rains or droughts is mainly borne by the poor farmers. The law of divine justice regards tolerance of sin as a greater offense than its committal. There is a saying that the father of the tyrant is a coward. Cowardice and timidity tend to invite suppression and oppression from some quarter or the other. Big powerful fish is always on the prowl for the timid small fish. The latter may manage to escape from one, but some other big fish will devour it. Laws of divine justice considered cowardice, weakness and ignorance as grave sins. It is not surprising that these invite harsher punishments. Natural disasters should be taken as stealthy act of divine grace. These are frequently manifested by the invisible supreme justice for removal of corruption from the society. Natural calamities are not aberration of nature. Instead, these are reactions of out of tune actions of living beings themselves. It is like the process of refining in the blast furnace. Through such loud warning, God mercifully tells us again and again to work for eradicating sins from the society. In the next chapter, we shall discuss how and when divine justice give rewards and punishment for the various type of goods and evil karmas. New chapter, the three categories of actions, karmas and consequent sanskaras. We shall now proceed to correlate the three categories of karmas and their sanskaras with the three types of miseries suffered by man. Sanskars are produced by each of these three categories of karmas, known in the spiritual parlance as Sanchita Karmas, Prarabdha Karmas, and Kriyaman Karmas. Let us keep in mind that the Chitragupta, the inner conscience of man, which is impartial, pure and wise, goes on recording each and every good and evil deed for dispensing justice of higher integrity. Sanchita Karmas, involuntary mental karmas. Unknown to the conscious mind of the individual, association with good and bad company leaves some impression on the psyche. Unless willingly or consciously accepted, sanskar produced at this process are faint, weak in potency and feebly reactive. The karma which produce such weak sanskaras are known as Sanchita Karmas. These sanskaras remain stored in some odd corner of the inner consciousness, buried in dormant state. Then there are karmas unwillingly, reluctantly performed under compulsion or in a state of helplessness. If one is forced to carry out such karma with revolution and these are not made into a habit, these are to fall in the category of Sanchit Karma. Being extremely feeble, the sanskaras produced by the Sanchit Karmas may remain in a dormant state in the psyche for the thousands of years through successive birth. These sanskaras generally remain inactive, but if a suitable stimulant is provided to them by the deliberate, strong, conscious repetition of similar deeds, these too become active. In the company of strongly healthy horses, a lame horse too begin to trot. With good soil and adequate rains, even rotten seeds germinate. Association with the identical sanskaras make the weak sanskaras gain strength, whereas in the past sanskaras repeatedly come in contact with the opposite type of sanskaras, the former are completely wiped out. If for a long duration evil sanskaras face a long continuous inflow of good sanskaras, the latter destroy them totally. As a matter of fact, the good as well as bad Sanchit sanskars bear fruit in a favorable environment and are destroyed when confronted with an adverse milieu. Pilgrimage and the ritual recommended in religious practices are meant to wipe out the weak, evil sanskaras accumulated as Sanchit karmas. Number 2, Prarabdha karmas. Karmas done with a strong emotional involvement. Mental karmas, which are voluntary, deliberately performed under strong emotion stimuli, are known as Prarabdha karmas. Being motivated by intense emotion, such karmas produce powerful sanskaras. Reactions of violent act like a murder and a robbery, betrayal, felony, and immoral passionate acts like adultery are very strongly felt by the inner conscious. Its innate spiritual purity is ever eager to get rid of this extraneous deleterious impurity at the earliest opportunity. It has already been mentioned that our inner conscious keeps a constant watch over each of our karmas and that determines greater and lesser punishment for each offense according to the nature of the act. A mental chastisement for a mental offense is, however, not possible without the help of other means. For giving an appropriate punishment, the inner consciousness waits for a suitable environment in the subtle world. Sushma Lok in spiritual parlance, where the divine system correlates sanskaras and creates environment for justice. Occasionally, this process is spread over a long time. For instance, for redemption of a mental sin of trickery, the sinner is required to be punished by grief. Chitragupta evaluates the grade of trickery to decide the degree of sorrow required for atonement. For punishing a murder, the divine system will associate the soul of the sinner with the soul of an individual who, according to its own karmas, can inflict the same degree of pain and grief on the sinner, which latter has caused to the aggrieved person. For instance, Chitragupta may plan birth of a son or a daughter in the family of the sinner who, the newborn, is destined to die at a young age according to its own past karmas. The inner consciousness of the killer will wait for a grief-producing event when the son and daughter meets death by a disease or an accident. In this way, the sanskaras carried over to next life, divine justice creates an environment for punishment equivalent to the sin. It is obvious that this process is not unilateral. Divine justice makes soul of both the sinner and the sinned interact in complementary environment. This complex process at times takes several cycles of life and death. We know that in this world too, it requires a long time and consideration of numerous factors before two individuals becomes life partners as husband and wife. The popular saying is that marriages are made in heaven. Indirectly refers to the coincidence of sanskaras of the bride and the groom. The pain of separation in a divorce too is a consequence of sinful karmas of the past lives. We may further try to understand the course of divine justice by an analogy in a natural phenomena. A shrub in America called Venus grows to a highest height of about 3 meters. Out of it branches spread out thin thread-like offshoots. These keep on growing and swaying in the air till they meet another shrub and they become mutually intertwined. Sometimes these shrubs meet each other barely after the growth of a few centimeters, whereas the others succeed in doing so after growing for few meters. This is the way the fruits of karma ripen for interaction over different spans of time. The punishment for the exclusively physical sins is a physical and is given without much delay. Consumption of poison results in immediate death. Mental chastisement, on the other hand, is neither instantaneous nor it is unilateral. For instance, if because of his cruel nature someone commits a murder and is caught red-handed, the state awards a death sentence. On the contrary, if the killer commits the offense secretively, the inner conscience does not punish him immediately. It would wait for an environment for creating in his psyche an aversion for violence by making the sinner feel the same degree of pain which was felt by his victim. That is why at times morally vile persons are found rejoicing and righteous ones suffering in life. Enforcer of divine law takes time in preparing an appropriate environment for dispensing just rewards or punishments. New topic. Is the prediction of future events possible? At times, yogis having paranormal powers make accurate prediction about the future events. It should not create the misconception that the life is strictly bound by rigid predestination. The future course of life undoubtedly depends on past karmas. By virtue of paranormal powers, the futurologists and the seers were able to foresee the ultimate outcome of the prarabdha karma. In this world too, we can often predict a probable future on the basis of a comprehensive data. On learning details of legal proceedings, an experienced juror may foretell the judgment to be delivered. It does not mean that there is no relevance of prosecutors, defendants, evidence, lawyers and cross-examinations. Foretelling of events also does not mean that certain events can be correlated to some particular past prarabdha karma. In fact, fate and self-effort, taqdeer and tadbir, are two faces of the same coin. Self-efforts are given the name of destiny when they bear fruits. You may compare the current karma with any raw fruit, which is going to ripen in future as destiny. The fate of today is the karmas of the past. If karma stands for an infant calf, prarabdha is the state acquiring by it late in the life as an aged cow. The word prarabdha is frequently misunderstood as predestined, though prarabdha karma and prarabdha are two names given to the same phenomena with a time lag in between. New topic. God is not vindictive. Misfortunes occurs in life in a particular order and according to a well-defined process of divine justice. But people reconcile to their inevitability by believing its so-called wrath of God, God's will, or nature's woeful state of this world. As a matter of fact, God neither creates nor good fortunes nor misfortunes for anybody. Nor he or she, God is not a gender specific, so that's why we can say he and she, desires to put anyone in distress. Nor in this world wholly fully of woes. A spider gets confined and entangled on its own self-woven web. Similarly, man himself makes his mind vicious, undisciplined, corrupt and sinful, and when the evil mind works to create a distressing situation, he weeps, wails and blames others including God. Here it should be clearly understood that the fruits of prarabdha are always received as an abrupt, unprecedented events. For example, unexpected death due to disease or accident, collapsing of house, winning a jackpot, injury due to accident, accidental loss of limbs, and ceasing of vital function of a body. God does not involve other beings directly in enforcing divine justice for a couple of reasons. One, the person enforcing divine punishment on behalf of gods would create resentment against his own self, thus being a chain of counter reaction between himself and the person being punished. It would increase turbulence of mind. 2. The enforcer would have to be unnecessarily involved in the complex process of cause and effect by committing undesired karmas and reaping their fruits. Here we may once again recapitulate the characteristic of Sanchit Karma and Prarabdha Karma. Whereas Sanchit Karma bears fruits only on coming across a suitable environment or otherwise get destroyed in a counter environment. The Prarabdha Karma invariably bear fruit, though it may take a period of several life cycles. The current activity is being knowingly carried out our Prarabdha Karma, whereas the unexpected sudden happenings are the fruit of the past Prarabdha Karmas. Any future failure in the life due to indolence is definitely not due to Prarabdha Karma of the past. Unlike the Prarabdha Karma, the physical Kriyaman karmas discussed here and after bear definite fruits within a short time.